I spent decades working towards retirement. Like many people, I believed there was a finish line. Work hard enough, achieve enough, save enough, and one day life would finally become simpler. No more packed calendars, late night conference calls, or rushing from one deadline to the next. Eventually, that day arrived. But what happened next took me completely by surprise. Today, I want to share the 7 retirement lies nobody warned me about. Let's begin. Lie number 1: retirement will make me happy. For the majority of my career, I believed happiness was waiting for me on the other side of that corporate door. And I know for a fact I wasn't alone in that thinking. But what if we've been asking the wrong question all along? What if retirement itself isn't the source of happiness? When I finally stepped away, what surprised me most wasn't the freedom, it was what retirement actually gave me: space. In corporate life, I thought the ultimate gift would be free time. Instead, I discovered something far more valuable. For the first time in years, I could spend meaningful time with family and friends without mentally checking my next flight or deadline. I could finally say yes to life experiences that had taken a backseat to my career for decades. Slowly, I realized that many of the things that make life rich had quietly moved into the background while I was busy building a successful career. Things like relationships, growth, learning, simply being present. Looking back, happiness wasn't waiting for me on the other side of retirement. It was waiting in the things I finally had presence to nurture. The truth is this: retirement didn't create happiness. It created space, and what you choose to fill that space with makes all the difference. Lie number 2: my career is my identity. For many years, my career occupied a significant part of my life. I was fortunate to lead talented teams, work across different countries and cultures, and take on challenges that stretched me both professionally and personally. It was a season of tremendous growth, learning, and contribution, and it deeply shaped the person I am today. What happens when the title disappears? What happens when the calendar that once dictated your life suddenly becomes empty? I remember waking up one morning after retirement and looking at my calendar. No meetings, no flights, no conference calls, no deadlines. For a brief moment, I wondered, now what? Many people fear that retirement will take away a part of their identity. I understand that fear. But what surprised me was that my first reaction wasn't loss. It was freedom, possibility. For the first time in a very long time, I had the opportunity to decide what deserved a place on my calendar. I started investing more intentionally in my health, my relationships, learning, personal growth, and my faith. And what I discovered was something unexpected. My career had been an important expression of who I was, but it wasn't the whole story. My title had changed, my calendar had changed, but my values hadn't changed. My curiosity hadn't changed. My desire to learn, contribute, and grow hadn't changed. The truth is this: your career is something you do. It is not the total sum of who you are. Retirement didn't take away my identity. It gave me the opportunity to express more of it. Lie number 3: freedom doesn't need a plan. For years, I dreamed about having more freedom. No alarm clock, no packed calendar, no urgent emails, just freedom. And when retirement arrived, that's exactly what I got. At first, it felt wonderful, but then a surprising question emerged. Now what? What happens when you've spent years dreaming about freedom and suddenly have more of it than ever before? What if freedom by itself isn't enough? That was one of the biggest surprises of retirement for me. I realized that freedom alone doesn't automatically create a meaningful life. Direction does, purpose does, intentionality does. One of the things I loved most about retirement was waking up without a packed calendar. For the first time in a very long time, my days belonged to me. But I didn't want to leave that space empty. I wanted to create a new calendar, not a corporate calendar, a life calendar. One built around the things that mattered most. I started investing more intentionally in my health, my relationships, learning, personal growth, and my faith. What surprised me was that the quality of my life wasn't determined by how much freedom I had. It was determined by how intentionally I used it. The truth is this: freedom without direction can easily become drift. Freedom with purpose becomes one of life's greatest gifts. Line number 4: my best years are behind me. One of the biggest myths about retirement is that the most exciting chapters of life are already behind us. Many people quietly carry that belief. After all, by this stage of life, we've already built careers, accumulated experience, and lived through many chapters. So it's easy to wonder, have I already lived my most meaningful years? Could I really start something completely new at this stage of life? If I'm honest, I've asked myself those questions too. Not long ago, I found myself exploring things that were completely unfamiliar to me: AI, YouTube, content creation, new technologies, new skills. And there were moments when it felt daunting. Part of me wondered whether it was simply too late to begin again. But something unexpected happened. The more I learned, the more possibilities I could see. Gradually, the excitement became bigger than the fear. What I realized was that experience doesn't limit reinvention, it enables it. We don't start from zero. We start with decades of experience, decades of lessons, decades of wisdom, skills that younger versions of ourselves simply haven't had enough time to develop. The truth is that age doesn't remove possibility, it changes the way possibility looks. Some of your most meaningful contributions may still be ahead of you. New careers, new businesses, new friendships, new adventures, new ways to serve and contribute. The question isn't whether your best years are behind you. The question is whether you're still willing to grow, because growth doesn't have an expiration date. Line number 5: money is the only form of wealth. For most of our lives, we're taught to measure success using financial metrics: income, net worth, investment returns, portfolio size. And while financial security matters, many people spend decades chasing a number, believing that once they reach it, everything else will fall into place. But retirement taught me something important. Money is incredibly valuable, but it is not the only form of wealth. Some of the richest people I know are not necessarily the people with the largest portfolios. I've met people with substantial wealth who were struggling with their health, others who had financial success but very few meaningful relationships. And I've met people with modest financial resources who were deeply fulfilled because their lives were rich in other ways. Over time, I've come to believe that a truly rich life requires a diversified portfolio of wealth. Financial wealth is important, but so are health, relationships, wisdom, faith, and purpose. When retirement arrives, many of us discover that the areas we neglected while building financial wealth suddenly become incredibly important: our health, our relationships, our sense of meaning and contribution. The real question isn't how much money you've accumulated. It's whether you've built a life that you actually enjoy living. When people reach the later chapters of life, They rarely wish they had spent more time checking their investment balances. Instead, they think about the people they loved, the experiences they shared, the memories they created. They think about their health, their relationships, their sense of purpose, and whether they use their gifts to make a difference in the lives of others. Because true wealth is about far more than money. It's about building a life that remains meaningful long after the financial goals have been achieved. Money can provide freedom, but meaning is what gives that freedom value. Line number 6. It's too late to change. Many people reach their 50s, 60s, and beyond, believing that change belongs to younger people, that the major decisions have already been made, that the opportunities have already passed, and that it may simply be too late to begin again. After all, change can feel uncomfortable, especially when we spent decades building routines, identities, and familiar ways of living. There's a certain comfort in telling ourselves that we've missed our chance. But my own experience has taught me something very different. Some of the biggest changes in my life have happened after the age when many people believe growth should slow down. Not before, only after. In recent years, I've been learning entirely new skills, exploring AI, building a YouTube channel, learning new technologies, developing capabilities that didn't even exist when I started my career. And every step of that journey has reminded me of something important. Growth doesn't stop because we get older. Growth stops when we stop being curious. What I've discovered is that learning something new at this stage of life is actually different from learning it in your 20s, because we're not starting with an empty canvas. We're bringing decades of experience, judgment, and perspective with us. Those become advantages. The truth is that it's never too late to learn, never too late to grow, never too late to contribute, and never too late to become more of the person you were created to be. The moment we believe it's too late to change may be the very moment we stop living fully. Line number 7. Retirement is the finish line. For decades, many of us were given the same picture of retirement. Work hard, save diligently, retire, and finally enjoy life, as though retirement is the final chapter of the story, a well-earned ending after a lifetime of effort. But I've come to believe that this way of thinking creates a problem, because once we see retirement as the finish line, we stop expecting growth, we stop expecting contribution, we stop expecting new possibilities, and yet many of us may still have 20, 30, or even 40 years ahead of us. What if retirement isn't the finish line at all? What if it's the beginning of an entirely new chapter, one with greater freedom, greater intention, and greater opportunity to focus on what truly matters? That's certainly how I've begun to see this season of life, not as an ending, but as an opportunity to redefine success, to invest in health, relationships, learning, growth, faith, and contribution. The truth is that retirement is not the finish line. It's the second act. And for many of us, it may become one of the most meaningful chapters of all. Perhaps the greatest surprise of this season of life is that success itself begins to change. It becomes less about achievement and more about alignment. Alignment between what we value, how we spend our time, and who we are becoming. For me, that journey has become a pursuit of 3 things: wealth in all its forms, wisdom earned through experience, and well-being that allows us to fully enjoy the life we've built. I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 7 lies resonated most with your own journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's learn from one another and build this community together. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to reading your comments and hearing about your own journey. If you'd like to continue exploring wealth, wisdom, and well-being together, I'd love for you to subscribe and join our growing community. Until next time, I wish you continued growth, purpose, and fulfillment. And remember, your second act of life may become your greatest one.